This is Woodman here. I wanted to talk to you about what the Old Testament says about divination. In Exodus 22:18, you shall not tolerate a sorceress. In Leviticus 19:26, you shall not eat anything with its blood. You shall not practice divination or soothsaying. In Leviticus 20:27, a man or a woman who has a ghost or familiar spirit shall be put to death. They shall be pelted with stones, and the blood guilt is theirs. In Deuteronomy 18, verses 10 to 11, let no one be found among you who consigns a son or daughter to the fire, or who is an augur, a soothsayer, a diviner, a sorcerer, one who casts spells, or the one who consults ghosts or familiar spirits, or inquires of the dead. Now, that's the Old Testament. What about the Kabbalah, which people often view as more spiritual and mystical and esoteric? Well, it also has a nuanced relationship with the concept of magic and divination. Kabbalistic texts and teachings generally focus on the inner dimensions of reality, spiritual enlightenment, and the relationship between the divine and the earthly. So here's how the Kabbalah intersects with the concept of magic. First, there are ethical and theological concerns. Traditional Jewish law often prohibits practices associated with magic, divination, and sorcery, as seen in the different verses I just quoted from Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. These prohibitions are grounded in the belief that such practices can lead people away from a proper worship of God and can involve invoking powers or forces that are not aligned with the divine will. What about Kabbalistic perspective? The Kabbalah does not generally endorse the use of magic in the conventional sense. Instead, it emphasizes the mystical understanding of the divine and the hidden aspects of reality. Kabbalists focus on spiritual practices such as meditation, contemplation, and prayer to connect with the divine and to understand the hidden dimensions of existence. These practices are aimed at achieving spiritual elevation and enhancing one's relationship with God, rather than manipulating the material world through magical means. Thirdly, a caution against misuse. Within the Kabbalistic literature, there's also a cautionary approach towards practices that might be perceived as magical or that attempt to manipulate spiritual forces for personal gain. The focus is often on the proper intention and alignment with divine will rather than the mere act of performing rituals or using specific techniques. In summary, while the Kabbalah itself is more concerned with spiritual growth and understanding, it definitely is not very approving of the use of magic as commonly understood because it aligns with the traditional Jewish prohibitions against sorcery and divination. Kabbalistic practices are intended to deepen one's spiritual connection and insight rather than to exert control over supernatural forces. In the Kabbalah, the emphasis is primarily on the relationship between you and God. And even, let's say, some people who engage in ancestor worship, would that be a problem? Yes, it would. The focus would be away from venerating ancestors. It's not to say that you can't respect your ancestors, but if you place a higher amount of reliance on them as if they are some sort of a godly force, then this would become a problem. So the Kabbalah really wants people to focus on the divine. Kabbalistic practice centers on understanding and connecting with God, exploring the divine structure of the universe, and achieving spiritual enlightenment. The primary focus is on the mystical aspects of God's nature and the divine emanations, which are known as the Sephirot, rather than specifically um, giving excessive praise to one's ancestors. I mean, there's some degree you can honor your ancestors, but you should not honor your ancestors to a point where that becomes primary over God. What about ancestors and spiritual legacy? While the Kabbalah does recognize the importance of spiritual lineage and the contributions of previous generations of Jewish mystics, the tradition does not generally encourage direct veneration of ancestors. Instead, there is an appreciation for their teachings and their past spiritual achievements. Respect and acknowledgement of one's ancestors can be present based on the Kabbalah, but is more about valuing their contributions to the spiritual tradition rather than engaging in rituals of praise or worship of the ancestors. What about Jewish tradition in terms of ancestry? In broader Jewish tradition, honoring ancestors is done in a way that respects their memory and contributions. For example, traditions like visiting graves, reciting prayers for the deceased, and engaging in acts of charity in their memory are common practices. These acts are often rooted in the belief that honoring the dead can have positive effects, and this can improve one's own spiritual life and that of the community. What about Kabbalistic practices in terms of what they would focus on as opposed to venerating ancestors or using magic or divination? Kabbalistic practices, including meditation, prayer, and study, aim to align oneself with divine will and gain deeper spiritual insights. While Kabbalists may respect the contributions of past mystics and scholars, the focus remains on divine connection and the mystical aspects of the spiritual journey. In summary, while the Kabbalah acknowledges the value of previous generations and their spiritual insights, it does not place an undue or significant emphasis on direct praise or veneration of ancestors. The primary focus still remains on deepening one's own connection with the divine and exploring the dimensions of Judaism itself. I hope you found this message enlightening. If you're new here, welcome aboard. You're family now. This is a safe space. If you are a returning subscriber, I thank you for your support of this channel. I love you and appreciate you. I love you, I love you, I love you. In the name of the Most High God, I wish you blessings and peace and protection and guidance as you further along your spiritual path to achieve your life's purpose. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Take care. Bye.